Hi everyone and welcome back to this channel, or welcome to everyone who's new, because normally leopard geckos are the #1 choice for beginners, and it is actually the one that I suggest the most for beginners. Okay, here I'm gonna show you how to set up for a leopard gecko when you first get it, and I'm also gonna show you basically what to feed them, how to take care of those feeders, and what supplements to get. This will not be a complete care sheet or care video. For them, this is basically just to teach you how to take care of them the right way from the beginning. Alright, now before we start, I do want to say that I am not an expert. I'm just someone who has basically spent many years, actually about a decade, trying to learn how to care for the reptiles that I like, including leopard geckos. I have owned several of them, and trust me when I tell you that most of what I did at first was all mistakes. So I learned from my mistakes, and like I said, I have spent years trying to learn what is the best way to take care of them. So helping beginners is something that I have been doing already for a few years, probably like 3-4 years, because basically what I have always wanted was to offer the help that I kind of feel like I didn't get in my first years. Alright, so the whole point of this video is for you to learn how to take care of one, before you actually get it. If you have one already and you're trying to learn, that is completely fine, but just so you know, you're gonna spend a lot of money that you didn't think you were going to spend. Trust me, I've been there. And most of the money that you're gonna spend will be to make the setup. Now, it's basically the only thing that is expensive, since leopard geckos are very cheap, and that's why, most people go for those at first. Alright, so the first thing that I'm gonna show you is the size of the setup. So this right here, this is a 36 by 18 by 18. This is what I mostly recommend to everyone getting a leopard gecko, even though a lot of people might tell you to put them in a very small tank. Alright, so trust me when I tell you that the size of the setup is not a problem. This is not too big. Even though a lot of people will tell you to basically choose a very small tank, this size is what I believe that is the perfect to start with. Okay. Okay, so obviously if you get an adult leopard gecko, this right here is what you need. This is the minimum that is being finally recommended. And even though if you get a juvenile, trust me, the size of the setup will not stress them out, and they will use the entire space. All you have to do is actually how to set it up to actually make it good for them, provide a lot of heights, and provide enrichment for them. I already told you the size of the tank, and now the reason why this is considered to be the minimum that you need is not only because you will have enough space for everything that you need, to provide the 3 heights, enough space for them to wander around, provide water and everything. Now speaking of water, one of the reasons why you need a big tank, for a lot of people this is considered a big tank, but the reason why is so that when you provide water, the humidity is not way too high. Now not only that, it will also help you to provide a good heat gradient. Now what do I mean by that is that you will need a basking spot at least 90, something between 90 and 95, to where the other end is at the lower 70s. Now as you can see here, I don't have any substrate or even water, and the humidity is already at 52. But here on the other side, which this would be considered the hot side, it's only at 30. So the whole point of a big setup is for those reasons. You need the tank that is big enough to where there's gonna be ventilation, and it's not gonna be 50% or 60% humidity at the end in the entire tank, and also the same with the temp. You do not want it to be completely 70 or completely 90 degrees. Providing different spots at different temps, different percentages of humidity is exactly what you need. Alright, so since this is to help beginners, I don't want to get too much into detail in this, but I do want to show you exactly what I'm using, because just in case you want to basically just go ahead and grab the same thing for you. I do want to say that my room always is set to stay at 75. Now, it's not always in 75, sometimes it goes down to 72 or even up to 77 during the day. So this right here you can see that I have two lights. Now one is to provide heat, and the other one is to provide UVB. Okay, now the reason why I'm choosing this is because this has a timer. So this is gonna help you, for example, you know, if you turn it so that it can go lower, the basking spot will be lower. Now this is not a thermostat, so you do need to be basically playing around with it until you get to 90, where it's the lowest, and it doesn't get higher than 95. Now if you don't want to be messing around with this too much, then I suggest to just go ahead and get a thermostat timer, which is a lot more expensive, but you know, it is obviously the best. For the bulb, this is what I'm using. Okay, you do not need anything higher if your room is already at room temp. Now I put this right here just so that you guys can see. Now to also show you, this right here is something that you can buy at Amazon for like $15, and this is gonna tell you exactly where you point it. So you see right there, you see, 92, 91. So this right here, if my leopard gecko wants to bask, this is where I'm gonna find them. Alright, so now for the UVB, this is what I'm using. The Reptisun T5, but I am using a 5.0, okay? You need to make sure that the bulb that you grab is a 5.0, not a 10.0. So using UVB is very controversial with leopard geckos, but it is known to be better to use it, to provide it. Okay, but you also want to make sure that your leopard gecko is not getting way too much UVB. Alright, so like I said, I do not want to get too much into this because this is to help beginners. So just go ahead and grab this fixture with a bulb that is 5.0. Make sure that it's on one side, and one side will not have any heat or UVB lamp. Alright, so I'm kind of hoping that I am not forgetting anything else before we start putting stuff in here. So now, time for the fun stuff. Let's set this up. Alright, so before putting everything in here, one thing that I did remember is also a background. Now you can decide to basically get, or if you know somebody who's able to make a 3D background for you inside, that is always the best. If not, you can just get a wallpaper, which is what I'm using right here. So that's gonna help them feel more secure. So obviously that's always a good thing to do. And also, like I said, you do need at least 3 heights. Alright, so here I'm gonna show you how to put everything. Alright, so obviously I already have the first height, which this is considered the height on the hot side. So I'm gonna put one in the middle and also one on the side. Now, one thing that I do want to say is that a height doesn't exactly mean, you know, a plastic height like this that you can get at a store. Now, if you can use something that your leopard gecko will use to hide in it, that's already a height. So what I mean is, for example, something like this. This is, you know, real wood. Now, the reason why I'm using this is because, well, aside from wanting real wood in there, because aside from it looking good, you know, this is gonna help them to have some stuff to climb. Now, to be honest, maybe cork rounds would actually be better. So I might be changing this for cork round. Now, like I said, you know, I want him to have something to climb. Okay. So that right there, you know, I want him to climb. And as you can see, you know, this is not smooth. This is something that I did so that my leopard gecko is able to climb it. They are not the best climbers, but you make sure that you give them the opportunity to do it, and they will climb. Now, obviously, they will not be climbing trees, but something like this is gonna be very easy for him to climb. Okay. Alright, so like I said, you know, you do not need exactly a plastic height. This right here is already a height. Now, I'm also gonna put more stuff in here to make it even more secure. Now, I just wanted to show you this, because this is sturdy. He has a height right there. Alright, so outside, from this being a hide, I'm also gonna put a little bit of substrate right here. So this is gonna be basically a hide slash digging spot. Now if you do not want to simply throw substrate in here, you can just get a container, make a hole in it, and then put substrate in there. Alright, but here this is the substrate that I'm gonna use. This is a mix of organic topsoil and washed play sand. This is something that I use for all of my lizards, and this is what I used for the last leopard gecko that I had. Now I understand that substrate is also very controversial. But you choose the right substrate, you make sure that everything else in your husbandry is correct, and you will not have a problem with substrate. Quite the opposite. You will be providing enrichment for your leopard gecko so that they are able to dig. Now since this is for a new leopard gecko that I will be getting, a young one, I do not want to put substrate in the entire setup, at least not yet. I want to make sure that it is eating well and also pooping well. So that I will see, and most likely in the latest 3 months, I will have substrate in the entire enclosure. Okay. Alright, so that basically is already 2 hides. I want to provide a 3rd hide. Okay. Now this is known as a humid hide. Now what is it? It's because it's basically a hide where the humidity is gonna be way above than you would normally have it in the entire setup. The humidity in this hide will be probably at 60 or even 70%. And obviously the days that I missed it, it will be maybe 90%. This is gonna help them a lot, especially when they're shedding. It's something that you need. Otherwise, they're gonna have problems shedding. Okay, so in here to make it humid, obviously, you know, aside from misting it, you need something to hold that humidity. So this hide right here, I got it from PetSmart. So this right here, this is what I think that is a perfect hide for the humid hide, because this will help to keep the humidity in there. So most people use some kind of moss, you know, sphagnum moss, Spanish moss. You can use that if you want to. So me, I'm gonna put paper towels for now. You know, until, like I said, until I make sure that my leopard gecko is sitting well and pooping well. Then I'm gonna use moss. Alright, so that's already 3 hides. But the good thing about getting a tank this size is that it gives you enough space to add more stuff. Okay, with a leopard gecko, it is not easy to have it way too cluttered, because that's basically what they want. They want to feel secure, and adding something like this is like a tunnel for them. This is actually something that I use. Right, so like I said, a lot of people have problems with humidity when they provide water. But the reason why is because they have their leopard geckos in, you know, 20-gallon tanks. So having a tank this size, again, is gonna help you with that. Now, like I said, you know, I also want to provide a few more stuff, basically just to be playing around, try to make them feel more secure. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this right here. Let's put this right here. Right, something so simple like this, if you really think about it, it gives everything that your leopard gecko will need, will help them feel secure, and it will provide the enrichment that it needs. One really cool thing about leopard geckos is that they poop on one specific spot. Now they will choose it, but with my last leopard gecko, I noticed that if you give them like some space in a corner, that's usually where they're gonna go. Alright everyone, so as you can see, making a setup for a leopard gecko is not difficult at all. You just have to, you know, think about it, make sure that you have everything that you need, and even more. And I also want to say that this is obviously not the best leopard gecko that you could have. There are a ton of setups that are way better. And as time passes, you know, I do want to basically get better stuff for my leopard gecko. Like I said, a 3D background makes a big difference. You know, obviously I'm making sure that it has ledges so that my leopard gecko is able to climb on that. But at least to start with, you know, this is more than enough than what you need. And now I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what they need to eat. Okay. Alright, so leopard geckos are mostly insectivores. You know, they eat mostly insects. And you know, there are a ton of options that you can choose from. There's, you know, a lot of different roaches, a few different crickets, and a lot of different worms. Most people, including me, you know, we offer dubia roaches, the most of the roaches. And same with crickets. You know, you don't have to buy a ton at the same time, especially because with crickets, it's very easy for them to die. So this is what I use to just basically keep them alive, at least, you know, until I feed them to my lizards. Like I said, if you have only one leopard gecko, you could just get, you know, 1 or 2 dozen at a time. Make sure that you gut load them. That is very important. Now, to do that is very simple. You could just offer something like oatmeal or potatoes and vegetables. Vegetables, to be honest, is the most important thing because crickets and dubias are already high in protein, so they do not need a ton of protein to eat. Alright, so vegetables and water is what they need the most. And what I found to use the most that will help to keep them alive is this. This is water crystals from Flukers. And I do feed my crickets and my dubia roaches the same way. You know, same vegetables. I feed them potatoes from time to time and the water crystals. Now another feeder that is very good is either mealworms or superworms. Now, you know, obviously if you have a very young leopard gecko, mealworms is the best way to go. Superworms are probably about 4 times bigger than mealworms, so obviously that is a bigger meal, which I only recommend for leopard geckos that are a year old or older. With superworms, they are by far the easiest to keep alive. Just feed them vegetables. Okay, just feed them vegetables and oatmeal, and that is all you need to do. So those 3 feeders are basically what you need, and they are known as a staple feeder. That is something that you can offer often, basically you know, one of those every other day. Normally what I do is that you know, I will feed dubias, and then 2 days later crickets, then 2 days later some superworms. Superworms are actually the ones that I feed the least, or mealworms. Okay, crickets and dubias make the biggest part of the diet for my leopard geckos, and actually for all of my lizards. If it's easy for you to get also silkworms, those are very good for your leopard gecko. Okay, so those include them as part of the staple diet. Alright, so another kind of feeder that is very good for them are called hornworms. Now I want to be very sure to say this, don't ever grab hornworms, or to be honest, any feeder from outside, but especially hornworms. Do not grab those from outside. Make sure that you get them from a reptile store, and you can feed those to your leopard geckos. Actually, quite often. I normally do 1 every other week. Those are mostly water and vitamins, so they are really good. Okay, now the last thing that you need to know is about calcium. Even if you gut load your feeders, they still lack something that is very important. That is calcium. So every time that you're gonna feed, let's say here your staple feeders, mealworms or superworms, crickets and dubias, you put them in a container. Okay. You put them in a container, let's say something like this, and you throw a little bit of calcium. You do not need to completely cover them in calcium, but you do need to offer calcium. Now there are 2 kinds of calcium. One without vitamin D3 and one with vitamin D3. If you are already providing UVB, which I really hope that you do not need the calcium with vitamin D3. All you need is the calcium without vitamin D3. And this is the one that I used the most. And speaking of UVB, one thing that I almost forgot to mention is that sometimes I do get asked how often do you change, you know, the bulbs from the lights. Okay, so the heat bulb, you change it until it goes completely off. You know, that's when it stops working. And the UVB bulb, you change it only once a year if you decide to go with this fixture. Right, so one more supplement that I almost forgot to mention was a multivitamin. Now this is something that I actually cannot show you one that I have because I do not use it. I always try to make sure that I gut load my feeders every single time, you know, as I have them. Always make sure that they do not run out of food, and you know, that is basically a way to make sure that they are food of vitamins. But still, you know, it's always good to provide a little more vitamins. So if you want to use it as well with calcium powder, you can. Right, everybody, I think that pretty much covers everything. At least you know the basics of keeping a leopard gecko not only happy but healthy. But obviously, if you have any more questions, you know, feel free to ask, and I will be very happy to help. Now, I got a feeling that some people will ask, you know, where to get your leopard geckos. So in this video, I want to give a very special shout out to Heidi Nielsen. So Heidi is a leopard gecko breeder, and she owns Xenogeckomorphs, and she breeds some very beautiful leopard geckos. I want to give her a very special shout out in this video because she deals with a lot of beginners, and I would definitely recommend for you to look into her page. Okay, and hopefully you decide to go with one of her leopard geckos. Now trust me, I've known Heidi already for probably about 6-7 years, ever since I decided to start keeping reptiles again, which was about 7 years ago. But alright everyone, I guess that's gonna be all from me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully this helps a lot of people, because you know, there's a lot of beginners that start with leopard geckos. If you guys do like this video or found it helpful, please make sure to give it a like. That will help me a lot. But alright, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Okay, so even if you gut load your lizards, okay,